Morthel, thank you very much. Under Committee Rule 9, we will now question witnesses under the 5-minute rule. Put the clock on, Bean, because I'm going to begin right now with some opening yes or no questions to our school district leaders. Mr. Banks, does Israel have the right to exist as a Jewish state?
Absolutely.
Ms. Silvestri?
Yes, absolutely.
Ms. Ford Morthel? Is the phrase "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," is that anti-Semitic?
I think most Jewish people experience that as anti-Semitic, and as such, it is not allowed in our schools.
You would say it is.
I would say it's anti-Semitic.
Ms. Silvestri?
It is if the intent is the destruction of the Jewish people, yes.
And it is, and it is. And so I would say I'd put you down as a yes. You're okay with that? A yes?
Yes.
Ms. Ford Morthel? It's a yes or, you can just go yes or no.
It is if it is calling for the elimination of the Jewish people in Israel. And I will also say that I recognize that it does have different meaning to different members of our community.
I'm going to go yes. I'll put you down as yes. I got a boogie because 5 minutes goes by so fast. Were Hamas actions on October 7th, was that a terrorist attack, Mr. Banks?
Absolutely.
Ms. Silvestri?
Yes.
Ms. Ford Morthel?
Yes.
Is terrorism ever justified? Mr. Banks?
I don't think so. Not terrorism, no.
Ms. Silvestri? Ms. Ford Morthel?
I would agree, no.
Congratulations. Y'all all have, y'all from Florida, y'all have all done a remarkable job testifying, but just like some college presidents before you that sat in the very same seats, they also, in many instances, said the right thing, but then we watched the TV monitors, and America watched the monitors of their campuses on fire with hatred, really reversing everything they said that they're protecting students, and when they were really not. This morning, I attended a gathering, a press conference, just a chance for students and teachers and parents in your school districts that have said, nothing is being done. Some really horrible things. We've gotten reports in your school districts across America over 246 very vile anti-Semitic acts that have happened. So, Mr. Banks,
Sure.
What are you doing with teachers? Teachers that are teaching hate. Have you fired any? Have you gotten rid of any? What are your actions say that you, because you're a man that has his basis in school safety, and you've said that
Absolutely.
earlier. But have you fired teachers that are teaching this?
Anyone that would suggest, I can't speak for my colleagues, but anyone who would suggest that we haven't done anything, that is certainly not correct. We have done quite a bit. Again, you have to remember, this is a very large system. And when incidents arise, we investigate every single one of them. We take them very, very seriously. We have taken a wide range of disciplinary actions on all of these issues. And so,
have students been fired, expelled?
well, we don't fire students.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
But we have given appropriate discipline. I said in my opening testimony, wide range of students who have been suspended from school. We have taken action against employees. We have terminated people as well.
You have terminated people.
Oh, absolutely.
Mr. Banks, thank you so much. Ms. Silvestri, I met with one of your students this morning who, it's one thing, bullies exist, but this student has said, but for being Jewish, why I was suffered physical harm. Have you expelled students and teachers?
In terms of speaking first about teachers, we have taken action in some cases. We put them.
You've gotten rid of teachers. You said, they don't belong in Montgomery County schools. You're teaching hatred, and we're going to get rid of you. Has that happened?
We have taken disciplinary action, yes.
Have you fired anybody?
No.
So you allow them to continue to teach hate. One of the people in this at this meeting I gathered was one of your teachers who is Jewish, who is scared for her life and has suffered greatly because she is reporting anti-Semitism on your campus on one of your schools, yet she's the one that's suffering. Are you aware of this?
I don't have all the details of that case, but retaliation against teachers is not acceptable in our school district.
So you haven't fired anybody. Do you think people need to be fired if they're teaching hatred and letting people?
Absolutely. As a part of our process, the teachers that have been disciplined know that if this happens ever again, there will be deeper consequences up to and including termination.
You're going to have to face these people, and I'm telling you, they're fired up, and they have stories that are heartbreaking. It's hard enough to go to school as a kid without suffering. It's just a shame, and I think we're better than this as a nation. It's time to all stand together. I've got so many questions, and I will now yield to Ranking Member Bonamici for 5 minutes.
Mr. Bean, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning to you, and good morning, committee. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I know it's a big deal to run a university, and I was just making a list of all the things you have to do running a university, including recruiting applicants to go to your school, hiring professors and staff, running the plant, raising money, promoting your school. You would think on that list, which is a very long list, you would think at the very, very top is keeping students, staff, and faculty safe on your university. Why we're questioning where you put that on your list is because we see lack of consequences. We see the answer is always it's under investigation, or we put that group on double secret probation, which really isn't holding anybody accountable. Chancellor Block, on November 15th, 2023, a Jewish UCLA professor and her husband went to a counter-protest at a UCLA Students for Justice in Palestine rally wearing pro-Israel t-shirts. They heard students chant, "Slaughter the Jews" in Arabic, and were threatened by students who said, "We will find you, we will take care of you." The next day, a UCLA graduate student from the rally stalked her husband at his office. 2 weeks later, more and more hatred and anti-Semitism, including garbage topped with a swastika and the words "loudmouth Jew" were left outside the doorstop. All this was reported to you and other UCLA officials, including the identity of who's doing it. What disciplinary actions did UCLA take in response?
Thank you for the question. We immediately alerted the police, and the police did an investigation, and I think that, I don't know if that's ongoing or not, but police were involved immediately in this incident.
Did anybody get kicked off campus? Did anybody
I don't know what the
kicked out
outcome
of
was,
school?
but police were immediately notified of this issue and interviewed individuals and attempted to identify who was responsible.
On November 28th, mass protesters cutting down hostage posters threatened and chased a Jewish student while brandishing knives. They chased him on campus. The incident was reported to police and to UCLA officials. Can you tell us what disciplinary action, including, did anybody get kicked off campus? Did anybody get expelled?
I don't know in that particular case, but the police were notified and they attempted to identify the individuals holding the knives.
So you can see, gentlemen, this is why we question where it is on the list, because we see the videos, we see everything, and we meet with students who say that it's, and we see the video just now, it breaks my heart. You can't even go to class. It's hard enough going to one of your schools, but to have to worry about it. President Schill, I know that you're rewriting the code of conduct at Northwestern. It sounds like you're going to start, you probably already started on it. Is calling for the death of Jews, is that going to be against your code of conduct?
It already is.
It already is. So you can't yell words that we all know, intifada and others, that are hateful to the Jewish and calling for the death and destructions. That's going to be...
Anything that calls for the death and destruction of Jewish people, whether here or abroad, is a code of conduct violation, and the code of conduct will be investigated, and there's a variety of disciplinary possibilities that will follow from that.
Very good. It's an open question. Here's your chance, presidents, to prove to this committee, to the American people, to Congress, your teams back home, that you rank the safety of students and faculty. Have you expelled anybody? Have you fired people, these hate groups on your campus? I know there's free speech, but this is clearly, as President Schill has already commented on, it's a real crossing of the line. President Holloway, what say you?
Any exhortation of violence, threatening students or the community, or harassment is a violation of our code of conduct.
And you've expelled students, and you've banned groups from your campus to say this will not be tolerated at Rutgers.
That is correct.
So I know my time is about up, but I was in Israel this past a few months ago and eating dinner with a family, and we were talking about how scary it is to live in Israel. The family says what we're really worried about is our daughter, and ironically, our daughter is starting Rutgers in the fall. We are really fearful of her safety coming to America. Should she have anything to fear at Rutgers?
I'm very sorry to hear that the family feels this way.
Well, they're scared. They're scared. They see the video that we see of students, which is what happened at UCLA and others across America, and they see very little consequences of breaking the laws and the policy because no one seems to be held accountable. Are you going to hold people accountable,
Yeah,
Mr. President?
May I answer? Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, absolutely. One thing I want to make clear is that in any instance of the kind of language, behavior you've been talking about, we've responded immediately with whether it's student affairs police, sometimes campus police, sometimes state police, even the FBI, to help us bring to conclusion.
Thank you, President. Madam Chair, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Mr. Bean, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning to you. Good morning, committee. And Mr. Secretary, welcome back. It is great to see you. You, Mr. Secretary, have a very impressive resume. You've been a teacher in Connecticut. You've been an administrator. You were a principal. Would you agree that one of the hardest parts of being an educator is the planning, the logistics of how many kids you have, how many little resources you have to make that out? Is planning a really tough part of being an educator?
Planning is an important part of being an educator.
Very good. So you would agree then when I hear from school districts of how hard it's been, the massive influx of illegal immigrants into our school system, you would agree that that's real. That's real, that they're having a hard time managing all these influx of students that they didn't know were coming.
Planning for new students as a school principal was something that we had to take into account.
So it's a curveball. Do we know how many illegal immigrants are in our school systems right now?
I can have my staff reach out to you about that information. I don't have it off the top of my head.
So, but do you have any idea? Is it in the millions? Is it in the 100,000s? Do you have a general idea? And here's the thing. I should know the answer. I don't know. I've gone online to try to find the answer. I don't know the answer. But I would assume the Department of Education, you would know, but you don't know how many are here.
I'd be happy to have my team follow up with you on specifics.
No, I'm sincere when I say I'd like to know. Good. Does there come a number, though? Is there a number in the future that you would say, we just can't take any more? Is there a number that you would agree that we just can't take any more? It's causing our numbers, right, teaching our kids to suffer when we just can't logistically plan for the future. Is there a number that you would say enough is enough?
So it is the
There's not a number?
The responsibility of educators as a school principal, I can tell you.
Oh, you take everybody. I'm with you. And I understand that's the law. Anybody that comes, you take them. But is there a time you're going to say enough? We got to call time out. You would tell Joe Biden time out. We're stressed.
As educators, it's really important that we meet the needs of our
students. So there's no number, and I was hoping you'd tell me there's a number so I can say help is on the way or we'll hit that max, but there is no end in sight. We're all on our own. Are you aware how many schools have been either shut down or partially taken over to house illegal immigrants?
I'm aware of cases of schools that
how many?
Have made.
Do you know how many?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
It's a bunch, and one would be too many for those students that have to do that. So that's something to be aware of. That's when I hear educators. We have a lot of struggles with numbers right now. I chair the subcommittee on K through 12, and our numbers since COVID have plummeted. And so we've got work to do, Mr. Secretary, and this is something that hopefully they won't have to do it. I want to congratulate you because you have done something few have done. You have united Republicans and Democrats, House members and senators on coming together to say that the Department of Education doesn't have the authority to give money that's not theirs away in the terms of student loans. Are you aware that even the Supreme Court has come out and said this is outside of your authority? Are you aware of that? The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, has said, Department of Education, this is not your purview. It's not your money. This belongs in Congress. Are you aware of that, Mr. Secretary?
The decision of the Supreme Court was in reference to the HEROES Act. I'm acting under the Higher Education.
So you're interpreting it different. You're saying that you trump Congress and you trump the courts. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Secretary?
That is not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what it appears, and that's why people are struggling with it. People would think it's arbitrary, but yet you've picked winners and losers of who you allow to forgive the money that's not ours. It's the taxpayers. It's not forgiven. It comes back to us. First of all, are you aware that a lot of times, and I've been in hearings, and I was a banker and made loans, a lot of student loans don't actually go to fund education. They're where the students have rolled in credit card debt or taken trips or bought cars. Are you aware that it's not all actually going to education? Are you aware of that?
The work that we're doing with public service loan forgiveness and borrower defense.
You may not be aware, so I'll tell you. I've been to hearings, and the way they do it, they combine debt. But you have picked winners and losers, because for those students that have chosen a religious-based school or a private school, you've not forgiven their loans. Is this your way of declaring war on those that pick a religious school or a private school?
Absolutely not. We're working for the working class folks who need a break. Instead of tax breaks to millionaires, we're trying to focus on helping those who are trying to get their education and not be in a lifetime of debt, sir.
I want to make you aware of so many things out there. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Bean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the song goes, if there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? If there's something weird and it don't look good, who are you going to call? Mr. Speaker, don't call Ghostbusters, call the police. Mr. Speaker, I rise during National Police Week to salute the brave patriots who keep America safe. I want to share my appreciation to members of our law enforcement community, our officers, deputies, and troopers, especially the families of those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives for the protection of us and the safety and the protection of others. It takes courage to wear a badge. It takes even more courage to respond to an emergency, to step into harm's way, to face dangerous uncertainty. But for our police, it's just part of the job. Unfortunately, our law enforcement community doesn't get the recognition and the respect that they deserve. So on behalf of a grateful nation, I want to say 2 words to our incredibly brave patriots who don't hear it enough. Thank you. Thank you for protecting our families and communities. Thank you for your service. As representative for Florida's 4th Congressional District, I want our law enforcement officers to know we salute you, and we will always back the blue. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Senator from Florida, Mr. Bean is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, committee, Acting Secretary Sue. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. How long have you been the acting secretary?
I'm not going to necessarily get this exactly right, the date, but I believe I was nominated in March of last year.
Okay. Is that like March of last year? That would be 13 months. Would that be accurate? About that? Yeah, about 13 months. Congratulations. I think you've set a record. My team says that you're the longest serving acting secretary that we've had in quite some time. How long do you plan to stay without being confirmed? You've been nominated twice.
So, Congressman, I came to the administration as the Deputy Secretary of Labor. I was confirmed for that job in 2021. When my predecessor left, I became the acting secretary through the regular statutes that govern succession.
How long do you plan to, is it okay for somebody to serve in the capacity Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution? Our founding fathers said, there should be advise and consent that secretaries should be confirmed. And so my question is, how long do you plan to stay if you're not confirmed?
Well, I was very honored to be nominated by the president.
I'm with you on that. It's a big deal.
secretary.
It's a big deal where I am, where it's a big deal. But how long are you planning to stay?
Our statutes, and I believe this was already mentioned by the ranking member.
You don't know?
No, they
Okay,
indicate
you have an
that
idea
I'm
of how long
legally
you're gonna stay.
serving in the position. In fact, the reason why we have a GAO opinion about that is because
So
this
you would
body
say
asked,
then,
I believe.
you would say
So-
people can stay as long, secretaries can stay as long as they want, as long as they have a ruling, they can stay without being confirmed? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I said I was confirmed as a deputy secretary in
I'm with you.
2021.
But no, I was asking about
Yes.
your acting secretary. You're no longer the deputy. You're the person. You're the person in charge. And our Constitution says you're to be confirmed. You're not confirmed. How long you staying?
So when my predecessor left, I became the acting secretary.
Would you
legally.
say it's okay then by saying you're not leaving? You're saying future secretaries or the next administration, we don't even have to worry about the Constitution. We can just stay as long as you want. Are you saying that, Acting Secretary
Absolutely,
Sue?
that is not what I'm saying. But this question about whether I'm legally serving has been asked and answered, and thank you for being the body that asked.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but you haven't really answered it. But here's the next question. I don't know that you see the precedent. It's the Sue loophole if you stay forever without getting confirmed.
Well, it's not a loophole at all, sir.
You're staying without.
confirmed-
I'm just asking how long you're staying. Which, by the way, happy Small Business Week. This is a week you've acknowledged it. I'm on the Small Business Committee. We're having a showcase in the Visitor Center today at 3:00. If you go talk to those business owners, I encourage you to do it. They're going to tell you that they're getting strangled with new rules, new regulations that makes it very hard. I've owned 4 small businesses. It's tough. You're often the first one to come, the last one to leave, and the last one to get paid. It's a struggle all the way. Sometimes that small business is an independent contractor. The last survey I saw, 86% of independent contractors love it, what they're doing, love the gig economy, love doing what they're doing. They don't want to change. And so I know Chair Kiley asked you this, but are you willing to continue to reclassify with over 86% of independent contractors saying, I want no change, I love my job, and that's going to threaten their livelihood? Are you still willing to go forward even though this is going to be against their will to reclassify them as an independent contractor?
Well, Congressman, in addition to the 15.3 million jobs that have been created in this country since President Biden came into office, we are seeing a small business boom at the same time. I don't know the exact number. It's over 15 million small business applications.
They don't want to lose their
also been
jobs. They don't want to lose
submitted.
their job. California did something very similar. AB 5 in California. They had to exempt over 100 professions because it was going to be a disaster. Are we prepared that this could be a disaster and people lose their jobs? Finally, let me ask you this. You believe, as do I, people should have choice in their health care, to quality health care. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I believe people should have quality
I
health
would
care.
too. I would agree that they should have quality health care. But let me tell you what you and DOL did. The previous administration published a rule to allow those gig economy workers, the independent contractors. Their rule allowed independent contractors to join the employer's health plan. CBO projected 400,000 people are now getting their health care through this rule. But yet what you did, your agency just did a rule that's finalized this week, reversing that and essentially kicking off 400,000 people that get their health care from their employer. And that rule changed that. So we've just kicked 400,000 people off. I am bummed out about that. And my time's expired. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
The representative from Fordham is Will.
They won't have to do it. I want to congratulate you because you have done something few have done. You have united Republicans and Democrats, House members and senators on coming together to say that the Department of Education doesn't have the authority to give money that's not theirs away in the terms of student loans. Are you aware that even the Supreme Court has come out and said this is outside of your authority? Are you aware of that? The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, has said, Department of Education, this is not your purview. It's not your money. This belongs in Congress. Are you aware of that, Mr. Secretary?
The decision of the Supreme Court was in reference to the HEROES Act. I'm acting under the Higher Education.
So you're interpreting it different. You're saying that you trump Congress and you trump the courts. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Secretary?
That is not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what it appears, and that's why people are struggling with it. People would think it's arbitrary, but yet you've picked winners and losers of who you allow to forgive the money that's not ours. It's the taxpayers. It's not forgiven. It comes back to us. First of all, are you aware that a lot of times, and I've been in hearings, and I was a banker and made loans, a lot of student loans don't actually go to fund education. They're where the students have rolled in credit card debt or taken trips or bought cars. Are you aware that it's not all actually going to education? Are you aware of that?
The work that we're doing with public service loan forgiveness and borrower defense.
You may not be aware, so I'll tell you. I've been to hearings and the way they do it, they combine debt. But you have picked winners and losers Because for those students that have chosen a religious-based school or a private school, you've not forgiven their loans. Is this your way of declaring war on those that pick a religious school or a private school?
Absolutely not. We're working for the working class folks who need a break. Instead of tax breaks to millionaires, we're trying to focus on helping those who are trying to get their education and not be in a lifetime of debt, sir.
I want to make you aware of so many things out there. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Bath. Mr. Bean, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Columbia beats Harvard and UPenn. Y'all have done something that they weren't able to do. You've been able to condemn anti-Semitism without using the phrase, it depends on the context. But the problem is, the action on campus doesn't match your rhetoric today. And you're saying the right things. You're saying we're not going to tolerate it. But we see the videos. We see what's happening on social media. And just this morning, all of these students, their message is quite different. Their message is one of fear. How about that? They can't walk across campus without getting the F word yelled at them, F Jews, Intifada, all kinds of things. My heart aches for them. It should be hard academically at Columbia, but it shouldn't be hard to walk across campus, and it is. So words don't match your actions, and you can have 200 meetings. You can put people on double secret probation as you have. You can write very strongly worded letters. Don't ever do it again. But that's not solving the problems. Look at the fear in their eyes right now. One of them said this morning in a press conference that we got to spend some time with that security on campus, are you ready for this? Security on campus told them, remove anything that identifies you as Jewish when things get hot. That's the way to stay safe on Columbia's campus, is don't look Jewish and you'll be safe. Is that your policy, Madam President? To stay safe, just don't look Jewish?
Not at all. And I think,
so the stuff, have you met with them? I know you've met. I know you met with them 200 times. But why is their message different from yours? Why are they saying it happens all the time, every week, going to class? Are you aware of that? It's a yes or no question. Are you aware that there's a problem on campus? You're aware? Yes is the right answer. You're aware. As president of the board, Ms. Shipman, thank you for being here. Are you aware, though, that this once prestigious university's reputation is just going down the toilet because of all of the anti-Semitism that's flourishing on campus? Are you aware?
I'm aware of how serious this moment is. I appreciate your urgency. We're not done. I recognize.
Have we quadrupled security on campus? Have we expelled students? How many students have we expelled?
We have massively increased our security capacity.
Have we expelled anybody? There's so many hate groups on campus. I want y'all to know there's got to be. This is America. It's 2024, and you shouldn't fear going to the library just because of your faith. Madam Chair, I yield the rest of my time to the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Stefanik.
Capitalism is a superpower, and I want to thank you for that work. My time has expired, and I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Leisure-Fernandez. Mr. Bean, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. A very good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Welcome back. I've got my very first question is something that unites us all. How about that? It also unites the American people because we're fired up. We're all fired up against people stealing our money. Medicaid and Medicare fraud. How much do we know how much is being stolen before our eyes, Mr. Secretary?
We don't have a precise number, but we know that there are folks who are always gaming the system.
It's a very big number. And how about this? I've got a report from the National Healthcare Anti-Fraud Association. There is such an association that does a little tracking. They say it's 100 billion. Does 100 billion sound about right, or is that just getting started?
I've heard many numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a big number. Mr. Secretary, the American people tell me we want our money back, and hopefully that we're going after it. The CNBC just did a little news story where they interviewed crooks that are stealing our money, and the crooks say, it's just so easy. It's unbelievable. I know that the administration is pursuing and persecuting people, some will say that haven't committed crimes at all, but what are we doing to go after bad guys that are stealing our money? Are we putting them in jail? Are we going after them?
We are. We have a team at HHS who does investigations. By the way, we are proposing $4 billion to help us do the investigations of fraud detection. For every dollar we invest, we return about $3 to $5 to the
Do we
taxpayer.
track that? We should
Yes,
put
we
that
do.
on our website. This is how much money we've got back. Now, when you find somebody that's committed fraud, do we kick them out of the program and you can we ban them for life? Do you do that, Mr. Secretary?
We try to remove those who have violated the law.
I hope we do, because we want our money back. There's an issue, you know this, the American people who have health insurance and are covered sometimes get surprised by medical billing. They think they either go in for a procedure or have an emergency procedure, and they get multiple bills, yet they had health insurance. Congress 2 years ago passed the No Surprises Act to say enough. The only surprise has been the implementation of your administration that's kind of fumbled the ball, or at least that's what doctors are telling me. They're telling me it's a big surprise that it's not done yet. Is this on your radar screen, Mr. Secretary, to fix this problem?
Absolutely, but everybody saw the new game in town and everybody tried to get in, and only certain ones were eligible, and so that's what caused some of the chaos.
I hope you'll consider that. I'm meeting with doctors, there's anesthesiologists, there's dermatologists, there's everybody in here and saying we can't get relief.
The good thing is the consumers are now out of that food fight.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. But people aren't getting paid, and it's no fun to work for free, and that's what's happening. Mr. Secretary, Florida, and I represent the free state of Florida. Florida Department of Children and Families just put out a report this week citing disturbing findings, and that is that NGOs, non-governmental organizations operating under the guidance of the Office of Refugee Resettlement under your leadership are placing children in unsafe, unvetted settings, and even worse, are explicitly prohibited from reporting concerns to law enforcement. Are you aware of this report?
Actually, the state of Florida took the initiative to remove the licensing requirement for these care centers, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, it doesn't make any sense that this report's come out. That's devastating. I know we've talked about the 85,000 kids that are missing that we can't find, that you've called. I know you're calling to try to locate them, but we're still putting them, according to this report, we're putting them in places that we don't know.
That's not accurate, but I understand what you're trying to say.
10-4. So you're aware of the report. And I know just earlier you talked about if a kid comes to our border and crosses line, and you gave the example, a 15-year-old kid wants a hearing, then that 15-year-old kid is not sent back home. They're allowed to stay and given a hearing. What if that kid is 12 years old and says, I want a hearing? Would we do that for a 12-year-old?
If an individual crosses the border and says, I'm seeking asylum, by law...
Even 12. Okay, 9, 7. What age do we say, you know what, you belong with your parents? What age? You said a 12-year-old can do it. They can't get a tattoo in America because they're not old enough. But you're saying a 12-year-old can say, I'm leaving my family, and we keep them. So a 7-year-old, would you say a 7-year-old is enough to say, I want a hearing, and you would say, you need to stay. We're not going to put you back with our parents. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Secretary?
It's not what I say, Congressman. It's what you and Congress have said. And by statute, you say that if an individual requests
Mr. Secretary,
asylum,
I just think it's unacceptable as a parent that if
then you'll have
these
to change the
young
law.
kids are coming and we're not only are losing them, but we're not putting them back with the family.
you'll have to
Mr.
change the
Secretary,
law.
thanks for coming out today. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back time.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Ms. Houchin, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for coming before us today. I'm going to pick right up where Mr. Bean left off because I, too, am a
We'll put the clock on me because I will recognize myself for 5 minutes. Witnesses, once again, thank you for coming forward and your testimony. Ms. Igoroff, you're an American citizen. You immigrated from Brazil. How does it make you feel seeing all these folks just walk across the border? Tell us about your journey.
I grew up in Brazil, in Latin America, so I understand why people want to come here. It's a great country. I understand the desire, but I think most immigrants are appalled about what's happening, right?
And they're saying this is not the way we did it.
I am appalled, and my family have had every type of visa that you can imagine as a student, and then going through the process. As I mentioned, my husband's family became refugees last year. They had to wait for many, many months for the process, even though they are both 85 years old and lost everything during the war in Ukraine. And so I really think we need to follow the process and
Follow
the
the
law.
process. Do you feel like they're held to a different standard? Is there one standard in education for people who have crossed here illegally versus people who are not here illegally?
Absolutely. My husband's grandmother lost everything, had to cross Ukraine under fire of the Russian army, had to wait because she didn't have a passport, and we had to go through the entire process, go to the embassy multiple times in Vienna where she was waiting for the process. We follow the process, and again, people are just crossing the border,
I gotcha. No, I know it can be very frustrating. It's like people cutting in line. Nobody likes a skipper when we're in line somewhere. Ms. Rodriguez, you had talked about being a border state, but now we know every state is a border state. When we talked earlier this morning, we had talked about different standards, that migrant children, illegals, are held to a different standard than normal enrollees. Will you talk about that? Is that something?
Yeah, so I think one of the things to remember, I've spent a lot of time along the Texas-Mexico border, and I picked up documentation and IDs from both adults and young juveniles and children that were dumped as they crossed illegally into the country. And so then the children in particular, once they come in contact with a federal agency like HHS, they then create this documentation based off of unverifiable information, because at that point, these individuals, including the children, are who they say they are. There's no way to truly verify it. So then that information is then used to enroll the students into schools. But yet, as an American, even when I enrolled my children and even switching school districts, we had to jump through hoops to provide documentation of vaccination status, education, and things
So we
like
just
that.
take their word for it. In my own district, there was talk of a student who claimed to be 18 but looked 26 or 27. Does that happen a lot?
Well, and that's the thing, is that we really don't know until something happens, right? Where then it is brought to the forefront. There's no way to truly verify it, and that should really be concerning for everyone.
Very good. No, thank you so much. We know California, Ms. Barkey, California is a border state, but now we know every state is a border state. And we had a great time talking this morning too. What could we do? What could California do, which also spends per student one of the highest in the nation of what it spends, but you have to question, does it get its money's worth? What could we do if we didn't have the illegal immigration problem in California?
I believe if we really strengthened our immigration policy that we could achieve more in California. We are at the bottom. We're in the bottom of almost every metric. And the resources that we put towards illegal immigrants, it is costing our children. It's costing every children. I have compassion for every child, and we're hurting all of them. So I would really like to see a stronger border policy so that all of our children could really succeed.
So it's tough, though, when someone doesn't speak the language. Are resources, or is there a separate class for somebody to have to even teach them English, but yet you still have to make sure our own kids get instructed? Is that correct?
Yes, it really takes from classroom time, because in the younger grades, everyone is together in a classroom. So when you have children that are significantly behind, and the immigrant children are significantly behind in English language and math, 85% in math, and I believe 60% in English language, or I may have that confused, but basically they're considerably behind our own students, and it does drag down the entire classroom and takes resources from the whole class when you're having to manage an entire classroom with children at different levels, often language barriers and things like that the teacher must deal with.
Very good. True, false, Ms. Egeroff, true or false, in New York, you had to be fully vaccinated before you were able to come to school. Unless you were an illegal immigrant, then you could come. Is that true or false? Put your mic on. I think you said true. That's true?
Yes, it is true. The mayor waived all vaccines for illegal migrants.
Thank you very much. Now, I yield to the ranking member for 5 minutes for questions. Ranking Member Bomini.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize Representative Bean from the great state of Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you, and good morning, Small Business Committee and Administrator Guzman. It's great to see you again. You did come to my district. We had a great little roundtable with members of the Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island, Nassau Chamber of Commerce. You heard directly from businesses of their challenges, including hiring, regulation. That's a common theme. Regulation. A lot of regulation. A lot of people at the same table you're sitting at have told us they've never seen as much regulation right now as a business. Supply chain inflation is something that is hitting everybody hard, whether you're a business or just trying to survive wherever you are. And thank you for doing that. I recently, over the August break period, had another roundtable with the Clay County Chamber of Commerce. And if they're watching, Clay County Chamber, thank you for bringing members. And we had another table. We heard the same common theme, Administrator Guzman: hiring, regulation, inflation, big supply chain. What's growing right now is the dark clouds that threaten every small business of this giant tax increase because of the expiration of the TCJA that's coming next year. I try to read everything across my desk or try to pay attention. What's the plan for SBA or the current administration? What are we doing to make sure that we don't just stick it to small business? Are you on board on trying to renew these tax cuts?
We're happy to provide consult to Congress as they determine what the tax policy will be for the United States. This is not, the U.S. Treasury is the one who would consult, of course, primarily. But of course, we hear from small businesses. Anything that hits their bottom line is an impact, as we heard.
Okay, so you're worried about it too. You're worried about these tax cuts.
We're worried because
threatening the storm clouds coming in and just battering these small businesses.
What I'm worried about is that 3/4 of small businesses have said that the current system is unfair to them and preferences large businesses. And so a continuous shift towards prioritizing small businesses is obviously something that we support.
Welcome to the team of trying to protect these small businesses, of shielding from these tax increases. And I'll be watching for that link on your website. Join here or click here to save small businesses from being ravaged by these big tax increases. If we don't do anything, this is just a side point, anybody watching at home, if we don't do anything, our highest marginal rate will be higher than China. How about that? That's just, that's wild stuff. So you don't think it's in the best interest?
I look forward to see what Congress is able to put forward.
So we want you on the team. So here's something. I was a banker. I had 13 years, made loans, and I discovered it has to be fair to the bank because we don't want to lose money. We don't want to loan anybody any money that we're not going to get paid. That's number one for the bank. But also, we want to make sure that that borrower has the ability and means to pay it back. We don't want to saddle them with anything they can't pay back. So it's fair. We want to make it right there in the middle. But I always had a plan B of getting collateral or getting something that in the event the business went south, we were going to get paid back so we could continue to make loans. You've made updated terms to the based on the SOP 50-10-7-1 of the Lender Development Program that you're going to allow startups, business acquisitions without any equity injection and without collateral. What's our plan B? We're not going to be in business if we're not having a plan B of getting paid back. What's the plan?
Our regulatory reform was geared towards simplifying loans, especially the $500,000 and under, deferring to lenders' best practices versus having a complicated SBA system.
Yeah. We're not going to be in business long, though, if there's not a way of the plan B. So to look at that, the default rates, I know we talked a little bit, but they're going up. They're going up, and I know there's a lot of factors. I was listening when you said that, but our job is to preserve the capital for the taxpayers to support the program, and when we get away from that, again, only in the crazy town can we loan money where we don't expect to, or at least don't have that plan B to come back.
One thing to assure you is that we require personal guarantee. We also require collateral at over $50,000. It's industry best practice and standard.
Secretary Gomez, please take that link off. It's a distraction of registering voters, and I know you probably didn't even know it was there. I don't know if you know it was there, but it's a red flag for everybody. We've got so much work to do protecting Main Street. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you. Have a great day.
Too.
2 minutes to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bean, Chairman of the Subcommittee on Early Childhood, Elementary, and Secondary Education.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair Fox. Madam Speaker, do you remember the 1970s? It was a decade of bell-bottom pants, lava lamps, and disco. But the 70s went beyond fads. Profound changes to societal norms took root, particularly for women, in 1972. In 1972, women were paid 60% less than men. Single women couldn't buy a home without a cosigner. Even more jarring, only 1 in 27 girls participated in high school sports. But the tide began to turn that year with the passage of Title IX. The monumental legislation leveled the playing field to ensure women and girls have an equal opportunity in education and sports. More than just throwing a ball, playing the sports means learning lifelong skills, leadership, teamwork, and discipline. And Title IX paved the way for girls to compete and lead in athletics. It's been 52 years since 1972, yet Democrats are trying to reverse many decades of revolutionary change by allowing men to compete against women. It's what the woke progressive mob calls equality. But every time a male takes a lane in a pool, a spot on a field, or on the starting line, a female athlete loses the opportunity to compete. Madam Speaker, that doesn't sound very equal to me. There's a reason that men's sports and women's sports are separate. The inclusion of men into women's sports breaches the privacy of all athletes, compromises fairness and safety, and subverts opportunities for women. Madam Speaker, today, I say no to men competing in women's sports. I say no to men in women's locker rooms. I say no to men in women's showers. And I say no to the Biden administration's proposed changes that will allow all of this when they try to change Title IX. That's why today, Madam Speaker, we're in a battle of survival of women's sports, and we have to pass a resolution. I stand in support of the resolution and ask for your help. Let's go get it done. I yield back. Thank you.
The gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady reserve. The gentlelady reserve.
The gentleman yields. Mr. Bean is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and good afternoon, Secretary. It's great to see you. The Biden administration is on a mission to force consumers to buy electric vehicles that they clearly don't want.
No, we're not.
Of the 282 million. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Secretary, you are, because the Biden administration is spending billions in subsidies to force consumers to make these decisions. 282 million vehicles are on the roads today. 1% are electric, and they're only buying them because we are bribing consumers with $7,500 to purchase that vehicle. They sit on the lots far longer on the dealership lots than their traditional counterparts. And now knowing that these cars are built with slave labor, is there a time that you will say, you know what, this is just too expensive. This is just too expensive. We want to rethink this policy. Is there ever a time that you're going to say that it's too expensive?
If you think this is expensive, wait till you find out how much oil and gas subsidies you've been supporting. Also, wait till you find out the economic impact that some economists have put at $15 million every hour or every day. Trillions of dollars every year from allowing the environmental conditions in this country and the planet to worsen. We are
Mr.
making
Secretary,
sure that there is
that's not what
support for a
consumers are saying.
homegrown.
Consumers are saying this. They're saying 46%. McKinsey and Company, a consumer survey company, did a survey of consumers. 46% that bought these electric vehicles.
Having worked at McKinsey, I got to tell you, it's not specialist.
They don't want them, Mr. Secretary. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of it?
Yeah, with all due respect to my former colleagues at McKinsey, their study is an outlier, and
One of
even
the
that
things
one
they
does
said-
not
well,
show
here's
that a
the thing.
majority
Let's
of the
just talk
people.
about it.
Great
Let's
if I
talk
could
about it
finish my
because
sentence.
a third of them
Why
said
do
they
you
can't
think more
charge.
Americans buy
they can't-
EVs every
Hold
year
on,
than the year
Mr.
before?
Secretary. I got a good question for you.
Okay.
And I want you to hear me.
Yeah.
Because because 40 of those the percentage, a third said they can't charge their vehicle. We gave you some money, billions of dollars to build some charging stations.
Yeah, and that's going out to the
How's
states
that
to build the
coming along?
chargers.
How's it
Coming along great. We're going to beat our goals of 500,000 chargers by 2030. And the reason why is because most of the states now have their money and they're getting ready to do
What's
the procurement.
the tally
and put those
right now,
chargers
though?
out.
I'm keeping, last month it was 7 charging stations.
186,000 public charging stations are available. The publicly supported chargers will go in
How many
the
have we
second
built?
half.
How many have you built?
Those are coming later. That was always the
Is
plan.
it over 7? Is it
What's
over?
that?
Is it over 7?
They're coming later.
So it's not over 7. I'm going to put you down at not over 7 right now.
2027, 2028 is when they're
here's
supposed
the
to be
big
built.
question.
But here's the other
another
thing.
big
Are you
question
conscious
for
that
you.
80%
Wait a
of
minute,
EV
I got
charging
3 more
happens at
questions.
home?
You got to go fast, Mr. Secretary. How are we going to fund roads if electric vehicles aren't paying into the gas tax to build roads? We know they're heavier. They do more damage than roads. What's the plan? Do we have a plan how we're going to build those roads?
Yeah, we're working with Congress on how to make sure the Highway Trust Fund has adequate sources of revenue, knowing that receipts from the gas tax have been declining for some
Okay,
time.
hold on
I
a
don't think
second.
that's an excuse to
Hold on.
stick with the dirty
Hold on,
and
Mr.
expensive
Secretary.
fuels of the
Let me
past.
put you down. I got to put you down. No plan yet. Let me put that down.
Well,
Here's the thing.
actually, you should put down
Vulcan.
something else on your little paper there, which
So
is we are
when we
funding
build
pilots
roads-
to
when
do
we
vehicle
build
miles
roads, we
traveled. So
use-
did you put that down?
When
Are you
we
gonna put that down?
when we build
Would you
roads,
be so kind as to put that down on my
gotcha.
behalf?
I'm putting it down right
Appreciate
now,
it.
Mr. Secretary. Listen, when we build roads, we used aggregates and other
do.
rocks and materials. One of the companies that has part of their headquarters in Jacksonville, Florida, is Vulcan. 2 years ago, Mexico took over their aggregate plant. They just walked in, the government walked in, took their plant, hasn't compensated them at all. And since that time, aggregate and building roads and building anything in America has gone up. Is that on your radar screen of how we can get this plant back or get American assets that was taken over by Mexico? Is that on your radar screen? Are you aware?
I'm not familiar with this plant, but I'd love to learn more. Pavement is actually one of my unfashionable passions. I think that if we do better with pavement durability and sourcing,
Just
we're
know
going to
that
do better on our
Mexico,
highways.
if anybody's listening, Mexico took over a company, an American company, without compensation. And I got one more question, and hopefully we can bring it in for a landing, and that is turbulence. Everybody knows Bean knows I'm scared of 2 things, clowns and turbulence. You said turbulence is caused by climate change. I want to give you a chance. Do you believe that?
Yeah,
and here's the thing. It's just you and I. You don't have, it's just you and I. You can tell me honestly.
Sure. So scientists believe that turbulence, especially of the wind shear variety, has increased as a consequence of climate change.
Listen,
Are you aware of that?
Your National Transportation and Safety Board said calling it climate change caused turbulence is hogwash. I wish we could have, I love chatting with you.
I'd be happy to
Mr.
send you the
Secretary.
study.
I love chatting with you, and I regret that I'm out of time. Thanks for coming. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Afternoon.
Gentleman yield.